I recently saw a comment that I had to respond to because I think it was a misconception that somewhat persists. And look, yeah, I have some bias in the issue, but I think it's a valid point to make. And so this was a HEMA group on Facebook, and somebody was talking about American stuff, and somebody goes, well, the USA isn't part of Europe. And I said, well, no, but historical American martial arts are going to be de facto HEMA. And that's, that's kind of actually important to the discussion. So, look, a lot of people will not accept anything as part of HEMA if it doesn't involve swordsmanship. And I think that's clearly false, right? And before HEMA was called HEMA, it was called Western Martial Arts, WMA. And both Western martial arts and historical European martial arts does not actually include hand-to-hand, or does not exclude hand-to-hand fighting. And it doesn't even technically, it doesn't exclude firearms. Because firearms, I mean, the first battle won by firearms, at least in the West, was back in the mid-1500s. So, what we consider European martial arts, there's a lot of variability there. And when we look at, what is historical? Well, technically speaking, anything before this moment is historical. But that's not what we mean when we say it, right? 10 years ago was historical. And when I was born was historical in the very literal sense, right? But nobody's looking at the 1980s as part of martial arts history. Now, it is, but that's not really what people mean when they say it. When people are talking about this, they're often talking about pre-mechanized warfare. They're talking kind of really, I think the easiest way to put it, because so many people are talking about stuff before things took shape and what are recognizable as the modern conventions of things. What you're really looking at is kind of more or less pre-20th century, pre-World War I, and maybe if you really, really kind of want to be a stickler for pre-World War II events or systems or ideas or whatever. And the reason for that is so much of what has taken place as the modern world has happened in the post-World War II timeframe. Now, there's been a lot of stuff. And, with the information age coming through, really probably starting in the 70s, but, maybe before that, things have taken another very drastic shift. But generally speaking, when people say they're practicing martial arts, most of the time people are expecting hand-to-hand combat, and very often people are expecting systems of manual weapons, historical weapons, styles of martial arts that were developed sometime in the previous century, I guess, in the 1900s and before, is kind of what people are talking about. This is just kind of a colloquial understanding, but the United States certainly has martial arts and martial arts traditions that go back to the 1800s. And while there's not a lot of talk and evidence, there's potentially some stuff from the 1700s. But I mean, look, our country was founded in, very late 1700s. So we can almost discount that and just look at the 1800s as far as our traditions go. And again, like I said, kind of the pre-World War period. And so, yes, is the United States historical? For sure. Now, here's the sticky part, right? And this goes back to that question, European. No, obviously, the United States is not part of Europe, right? We're a completely separate continent, completely, separated by two oceans from Europe and Asia, which are actually a contiguous continent. So there's no doubt at all that we are not physically European. However, the dominant culture of the United States is European. And that is because we were colonized and settled by Europeans, primarily British. Our law system is based off of the British common law and everything. And yes, we've developed things and we've diverged and we have developed our own cultural identity and all of that. But the fact is that the United States Foundation, and the older you go, the more true this is very European. And as we had immigration from other parts of Europe, we had European settlers coming in from the Scandinavian areas. We had the Spanish South, kind of the Scandinavian North. Kind of makes sense geographically that way. So American culture is very, very largely European culture, not exclusively, of course not, right? I mean, look, we can't ignore the Atlantic slave trade, and thus there's a lot of West African culture that kind of came by proxy, through that avenue. Say whatever you will about that. We're not here to argue that, but the point is that still got mixed in with European culture, and the fact is that our culture is largely European based. And when it comes to our martial arts traditions are very much European based. Our wrestling came over from Europe. The rough and tumble in the South came over from Europe. I mean, it was kind of developed here, but it kind of came from a lot of the scrapping that was being done in Europe. Boxing very, very clearly came over from Europe. I mean, boxing was basically, and what we consider boxing now was basically an English invention. So the fact is that American martial arts, whether you look at boxing, you look at rough and tumble, catch as catch can, folk style wrestling, which folk style wrestling is American, but based off of catch as catch can, which is English. If you go to freestyle and Greco-Roman, that's French wrestling, right? The Olympic styles, but that came over. So American martial arts are by and large based off of British martial arts, especially in the pre-World War period. It's just stuff that kind of came over with the settlers and continued to get it practiced. Now, it was practiced differently here. Catch as catch can wrestling was a little bit different in the States than it was in Europe. Boxing was a little bit different. We had the fair play rules here versus the prize ring rules over there. And the Marquess of Queensberry rules changed things as well. But the fact is that just de facto European culture and European martial arts are part of what we do in the United States, right? And that brings us to the last one, right? Martial arts. Do we have American martial arts? And the answer is yes, but they're all offshoots of European martial arts in the pre-World War period, at least. Now, look, American kickboxing, we've talked about that before. Go back to Joe Louis and everything, and he was taking karate and boxing rules. Partly European, partly karate. But that's American kickboxing is American kickboxing, and it looks similar to other styles of kickboxing, but it is different. And there have been other little things like that. The Bowie knife is an American thing. Now, we don't have any manuals on the Bowie knife, but it was a fighting knife designed in the frontier era. That's an American thing. Would that be part of HEMA? Well, maybe not, right? It fits the historical part, but it's kind of uniquely American, but then we don't know how they fought with it, and as far as we know, it could very well be the kind of the same ballpark as any other large knife. So the fact is that I will put my blessing on it, that if you have American sources pre-World War era, they should at least be supplementary HEMA. They are de facto part of the HEMA tradition. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be basing your entire HEMA club around American sources, but I think you should treat historical American pre-World War sources as a part of HEMA, at least as a supplementary part of HEMA. And I don't really think there's much of an argument there. So we'll we do have to be careful about, I mean, the British Empire was absolutely massive. The French Empire was absolutely massive. Even the Portuguese Empire was pretty big. The Spanish Armada was pretty big. I mean, these Western European empires put their stamp on a lot of cultures. So we have to be careful, right? We don't want to treat everything that one of these empires touched as a part of HEMA specifically. But they are of interesting historical curiosity. And we know that intermingling happened. And again, it's just how much is going to be kind of de facto European versus how much is going to be LaCroix, a hint of European. Like I said, American culture, pre-World War, it very, very largely European. Immigrants, colonists, settlers, very, very, very much European. So yeah, USA is part of HEMA, at least in the margins. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.